Welcome to the deep dive. We've got some sources today that you sent in, tackling a really complex area, deep theology.
That's right.
It's about the relationship between, well, the first God and the second God, the Father and the Son.
hmm
And this isn't just, basic faith stuff. It looks like a very systematic, almost like a conceptual mapping exercise.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
The sources we're looking at are incredibly structured. They present a very detailed, quite rigorous argument. And they're trying to resolve what feels like a paradox.
Yeah, the big one.
How can the Father and Son be co-equal, same power, same essence? But then we also see this hierarchical relationship. How does that work?
Right. Equal, but not.
Exactly. And the answer, well, the sources argue it all comes down to how you define eternity versus, our reality space-time.
Okay, so it jumps right in. The sources apparently pose this fundamental question right at the start, the one that shapes the whole discussion.
You.
Is the Father greater than the Son, even in that ultimate uncreated state? They call it the always eternal realm.
Yeah, that's the term. And it's the perfect place to start because it forces you to pick a side, conceptually speaking. The sources actually acknowledge two potential views right off the bat.
Okay, what are they?
Well, first, the idea that the Father must always be greater. An eternal seniority, if you like.
Kind of intuitive, maybe.
Perhaps. But the second view, and this is the one the sources really build on, is that in that always eternal state, the first and second gods are absolutely, fundamentally equal.
Ah, okay. So if that's the baseline.
Then the hierarchy we see, the one in Scripture, it can't be about their inherent divine nature. It must be explained by something else entirely.
Something.
Temporary.
Or functional.
Exactly. If they start equal, the hierarchy has to be, functional or temporal. And that temporary nature, that's the conceptual key, really, for everything else we'll talk about.
Right. We need to figure out why the second God would take on a subordinate role. What triggered that change in their relationship?
Precisely. Because the sources argue it didn't actually change their eternal equality. It just redefined how they interacted for a specific purpose. It's like equality is the constant, the baseline, and hierarchy is the tool they needed for a particular cosmic job.
Okay, let's really unpack that equality first. Before this whole cosmic project, as you called it, the sources seem very clear. First God, second God, originally essentially equal, conjugune. So what are the specific reasons, the non-negotiables for why they're considered equal?
The sources list some really powerful points. Firstly, they're both creator gods. Full stop.
Meaning not one main creator and one helper.
Exactly. Not like that at all. Both possess the intrinsic, uncreated power to bring existence into being. They share that fundamental attribute, ultimate creativity, both of them.
That's big. What else?
Secondly, and this one is a bit more mind-bending perhaps, both constantly sustain the infinite. Slow-joneia.
Whoa, wait. Sustaining the infinite. Not just our universe, space-time, but infinity itself. That's huge. How do they describe that?
It points to their shared nature beyond any created dimension. Think omnipresence, omnipotence, but outside of time and space as we know it. If one needed the other to sustain them, well, they couldn't both be truly infinite, could they?
No, that makes sense. One would be dependent.
Right. And this always eternal state, that's where they operate without our constraints. No cause and effect, no time, no space. So the source concludes, because they both share this power, to create and sustain everything, including infinity itself.
And they have to be equal, in essence, in power.
Yeah. Any other conclusion would mean one is limited compared to the other. It just wouldn't fit the concept of always eternal.
Okay, so that establishes the baseline, equality and the always eternal. So when did the difference, the hierarchy, actually start? The sources seem to point to that moment in John 14:28, when the Son says, "The Father is greater than I."
Yes, that's pivotal. Absolutely pivotal. Because it's the distinction that unlocks the whole paradox.
How so?
The Father becomes greater only, and this is the key part, only because the Son voluntarily did something profound. He limited himself. The second God emptied himself, our God, and became a creature. You. And the sources are really careful here. They stress that the Son's statement, "The Father is greater than I," was made specifically while he was existing in that temporal state, constrained by a human body within space-time.
Ah, so the context is everything. It's not a statement about his fundamental being, but about his current role.
Exactly. It's not an admission of being inherently lesser. It's acknowledging a temporary functional status he willingly took on.
But still, how can an infinite divine being genuinely become a creature? without, ceasing to be divine. That sounds like a contradiction you can't just smooth over.
It does, doesn't it? And that's described as, well, the ultimate theological tightrope walk.
Yeah.
So the sources suggest it's not like a reduction of his godness, but more like a veiling.
Yeah.
Or maybe a superimposition. Yeah. The infinite divine nature is still there, still holding the cosmos together, but the outward observable function is that of a creature, bound by time, bound by space. And the submission involved is completely voluntary. This act is what creates the necessary difference in status for the plan.
And there's an analogy the sources use to help explain this idea of hierarchy based on status or origin, right? Something about Abraham and Levi.
Yes, they use that biblical example. Levi, remember, paid tithes to Melchizedek through his ancestor Abraham. The logic presented is that Levi, who was still in the loins of Abraham at the time, was hierarchically junior.
Because Abraham came first, had the status.
Right. Abraham's origin and status made him greater than his descendant yet to be born. So in the divine case, while the Son is eternally divine, the Father represents the unbegotten origin. And when the Son chose to become a creature, it solidified this temporary hierarchy. It proved the Father's originating status was greater, but specifically within the framework of the created order.
Got it. So when the second God took on this creature form, he became Christ. And that act formally established the subordination needed for this cosmic mission.
Precisely. When the second God became Christ, the first God then became the head of Christ. The source points to 1 Corinthians 11.3 to back this up. This subordinate role is absolutely essential, and it's tied directly to the Son existing temporarily as a creature. Liguth. Without him doing that, the whole plan for creation and, crucially, inheritance, which we need to get into, just couldn't happen according to the rules they set up.
Okay, so this lets the sources map out that specific temporary chain of command that's relevant to us here in our reality?
Yes, that structured relationship. Father-son space-time. Because the Father has seniority over the Son in this specific creaturely role. And the Son, even while in that role, is still infinitely superior to all of creation, all of space-time.
So mapping it like that shows the Father's greaterness is conditional.
Exactly. It proves the Father is greater than the Son only when the Son is operating under those temporary constraints he chose to accept. It's the act of submission that creates the hierarchy, not some fundamental difference in divine power. Their essential equality remains untouched. #tag 2. The Creator's sustaining role within the creature state.
Okay, now this is where it gets really tricky for my brain, at least. If the Son is truly a creature for a time, bound by space and time like us, how can the sources also say that this creature is massively superior to the cosmos he's living in? Doesn't being a creature mean having limits?
It does, absolutely. But the sources argue those limits apply primarily to the human aspect, the sort of temporal shell he adopted. The source is quite insistent on the Son's simultaneous greatness. Even while he's existing as Christ, the creature, he remains vastly superior to space-time.
Really?
And this isn't just them saying it. It's presented as a necessary truth for creation to even continue. The entire cosmos, space-time, is sustained through the Son. He's the one actively holding every atom, every dimension together, even while he's, walking around Galilee.
Wow. So his power to sustain everything never stopped. He didn't, hang up his omnipotence when he became human.
Not at all.
Because if he did, even for a second, poof, the universe disappears.
That's the implication in the sources, absolutely. In fact, they go even further. They make a statement that really drives home that fundamental equality we started with. The source declares that the Son is the entirety of space-time, just as the Father is. These are they agreeing?
The entirety of space-time, both of them.
Yes. It's a statement about shared omnipotence, shared omnipresence that goes way beyond the temporary creature role.
Yeah.
Think of the creaturehood as a focused mission, a specific role he played, while the underlying divine essence is this sprawling, infinite reality that supports everything.
Okay, let's list those shared divine attributes again, because this is the proof, right? That the creature state was purely functional. What powers, what glories do they share that show they're essentially equal?
Right. They share everything that makes God God. Both are inherently glorious. IUEA. Both are fundamentally greater than space-time. They are both the entirety of existence and non-existence.
Existence and non-existence. What does that even mean?
It's mind-bending, isn't it? It suggests a reality beyond even our most abstract ideas of being, something utterly fundamental, and perhaps most critically, both possess the power to call non-existence into existence. the power to create from nothing.
Exactly. That's the ultimate mark of creator God status. And the fact that both share it, unequivocally, proves that the Son taking on a creaturely status didn't diminish his godhead one bit. Okay, and all this ties back somehow to life, specifically the word John, which is the life given to creatures. If the Son is the Word made flesh, how does the Father relate to him regarding life-giving during this creature phase?
Yeah, this is explained as a mechanism specifically designed for the salvation plan. The first God, the Father, possesses life inherently. He is life within himself.
Right.
The sources then describe this process where the Father gives that life, the Word, the life to the Son, but specifically to the Son who has emptied himself of that uncreated glory. He receives it again, but now within the temporal state. They point to John 5.26 for this.
Okay, so it's not like the Son lost life and needed it back. It sounds more like a delegation, transferring the authority to operate the life-giving function within this new creature framework.
That's a very good way to put it.
Exactly.
In eternity, the second God inherently was the Word and the life. But to become the prototype creature, the one designed to bridge God and creation, he had to voluntarily receive that life as a creature.
Hi, what's the significance?
The ultimate meaning, according to these sources, is deeply structured. The first God transfers his life to creatures through the second God who became a creature. It does two things. It maintains that temporary necessary hierarchy, Father giving to Son, and it ensures life still flows from God to creation, but now through the specific channel of the Son's sacrifice and role. It basically defines the pathway to salvation through the Son's submission.
So the Father is actually honoring the Son's self-emptying. By relating to him as both fully God and fully the firstborn creature, he's respecting the rules of this setup.
He is. It's presented as the ultimate display of divine faithfulness to the rules they themselves established for this cosmic project. The Father validates the Son's creaturely role by granting him the necessary authority within that role. This ensures that the whole salvation plan, which absolutely depends on the Son's obedience as a creature, can actually succeed. #tag3, the Son as the prototype and inheritor.
Okay, let's look at the specific words used for the Son in this creature role. Only begotten Son and firstborn. The sources say these terms don't mean what we might first assume, chronologically speaking.
They absolutely don't. And getting this distinction right is critical. Otherwise, you fall into major theological errors, like the idea that the Son was the first created being. That's Arianism, and it denies the Son's eternal divinity.
Which these sources strongly uphold.
Strongly. They are insistent. The Son is not a creature in the normal sense. The term only begotten Son refers to his unique status. He is the creator who voluntarily became a creature. It highlights his absolute uniqueness. He's the only one ever who is both creator and creature.
Okay, clear enough. What about firstborn then? Gotcha. If it's not about being created first, what role does that title define?
It defines his role as the prototype. The sources call him the prototype or even the completion of the creature state.
The template.
Exactly. The ultimate template, the perfected model. All other creatures, the source argues, were actually created to resemble the Son's image. Oxygat, guys. He is the standard, the finished blueprint for what perfected creaturehood looks like specifically, one who can navigate the temporal realm and overcome sin and death. He's the ultimate human, designed to be that perfection, which makes him the firstborn among many adopted siblings who follow.
Right, that makes sense. Which brings us to this really fascinating, almost legalistic reason given for this whole operation. The Son had to become a creature to inherit space-time. The use. Why? Why does the creator who made everything need to inherit it? Can't he just own it?
This is one of the most logically satisfying parts of the argument in the source material. It connects back to concepts of law that we understand, but applied cosmically, because space-time was created by the Son.
Yeah.
He couldn't inherit it as the creator. The source states it quite plainly. Say, you can't inherit your own stuff.
Huh.
Inheritance, by definition, means receiving something from someone else. If the Son just owns space-time by default because he made it, there's no transfer. There's no legal basis for establishing a new order of ownership, a restored ownership.
So to make a functional, legally recognized claim on creation, especially after sin entered the picture, he had to enter creation as a subordinate, as someone eligible to receive it.
That's exactly the logic presented. To meet the cosmic rules for ownership through succession and ultimately restoration, the Son had to become the firstborn creature. By doing that, he could then receive the inheritance, the eo, the title deed to the created realm, from the Father. It sets up the whole system where ownership is purified and reestablished through the actions of a creature, albeit a unique, divinely empowered creature who successfully met all the challenges of space-time and sin.
That sounds incredibly thought out. So the incarnation, the submission, it wasn't just about demonstrating love. It was fundamentally about securing the legal title to the universe under the Father's ultimate authority.
Yes. It frames the entire existence of the cosmos, not as some random event, but as a meticulously planned legal and relational process. And this has huge implications for you, the listener.
How so?
Because this inheritance, received by the Son as a creature, is what makes it possible for those who follow the Son to also receive their inheritance. As adopted children each, if the firstborn creature didn't receive the estate first, there'd be no legal mechanism, no precedent for the rest of the adopted children to share in that promised future.
Wow. Okay. That makes the cross even more central, doesn't it? It's like the final act needed to complete the legal paperwork and purify the inherited property.
Absolutely. The source hammers this point home. The cross is the ultimate evidence, the validation for this whole cosmic structure. It accomplishes two critical things at once. First, it perfectly demonstrates God's love and his unyielding justice. Love and justice together. Yes. The Creator dying for the creature satisfies the legal demands of justice against sin. But maybe even more profoundly, seeing this incredible, self-sacrificial love is meant to eliminate the potential for future sin, future rebellion in creatures who truly grasp it.
How does it do that?
By demonstrating a love so total, so self-giving, that choosing anything else becomes unthinkable. When that possibility of cosmic rebellion is finally removed through this perfect display of love and justice, then creation is truly completed. Karchayan Wadua.
So the cross isn't just atonement, it's the cosmic insurance policy, signed in the blood of the prototype creature, guaranteeing the future stability and perfection of creation.
That's a powerful way to put it. It's the moment the temporal mission achieves its goal. The Son, as the firstborn creature, performs the necessary act to redeem the title deed, which then clears the way for the final phase, dealing with all remaining opposition. #tag4. The completion of creation and the final restoration.
All right, so the cross is done, the inheritance is legally secured, and now the Son rules as king. The sources describe this as a kind of necessary intermediate step, a period where he holds delegated authority within space-time.
Yes, exactly. You could think of it as the cleanup phase. The Son reigns as king until every last trace of rebellion, error, and opposition is completely gone. The source specifically mentions this rule continues until all enemies, especially death, are totally destroyed.
Right, that's 1 Corinthians 15.
That's the reference, yes.
Yeah.
Verses 25-26. His kingship is a temporary executive role needed to bring the created realm, space-time, to its final perfected state, getting it ready for the next step.
And once that mission is finally complete, once space-time is perfected and all enemies are dealt with, then we get to the grand finale, the handover.
Yes, the return to the Father. The second God, having perfectly done everything required as Christ and King, completes space-time, and then hands the entire finished kingdom back to the first God. It's the ultimate act of submission, really. It proves that his authority as king was always delegated, always functional, always part of the plan leading back to the Father.
And this return of the kingdom culminates in that final, really profound act of submission, the one that proves, beyond doubt, that the hierarchy was only temporary.
It is. It's the formal end of that functional structure they adopted. After everything is subject to the Son, the source again points to 1 Corinthians 15, specifically verse 28, detailing that the Son himself then becomes subject to the Father. This final voluntary submission confirms the whole premise we started with. The Father is greater only while the Son is operating in that temporary, creaturely role to fulfill the mission. The mission's over, so this final submission is like his final report, mission accomplished.
And the result of this, the outcome of the Son submitting and handing back the kingdom, the Father then becomes all in all.
Cinco quera. What does that mean according to the sources, in context of Father, Son, and this completed creation?
It signifies the ultimate unity, complete unity of power and presence. God the Father fills everything, not just in a spiritual sense, but totally. because the whole reason for separation sin, creaturely limits, the functional hierarchy, it's all been dealt with, completely removed. The Son has successfully brought the perfected creation back into, well, the Godhead structure.
Okay, and this is the absolute clincher, isn't it? Right after this final act of the Son submitting himself, the source snaps right back to the truth about eternity.
Exactly. It's crucial. The source clearly states that after this final submission in time, the Son will again become equal with the Father. Just he goes back.
He goes back. The second God, who became the creature prototype, performs his final act of subordination within time, and then immediately reverts to his eternal uncreated state, the state where hierarchy isn't needed. The whole massive process, space-time becoming a creature, sacrifice, kingship, it was all the necessary scaffolding to build the bridge. And once the bridge is built, the scaffolding comes down.
And the first and second gods are restored to their always eternal equality.
Just as they were before the project began.
So the entire cosmic drama, we see the unbelievable scale of the universe, the story of salvation, the very concept of time itself. It all exists just as this sort of controlled environment, a place where the Son could become a creature, legally secure creation's ownership, destroy sin's possibility, and then hand the perfected system back.
That's the picture the sources paint. And we have to keep remembering, the sources insist that throughout this entire process, the Son never stopped sustaining the infinite. He was always the creator God. The temporal act of becoming a creature was like a focused, specific operation overlaid onto the fundamental reality of his eternal, co-equal divine nature. Hashtag Chat 5, the limits of creaturely knowledge.
Okay, we've mapped out this incredibly elaborate system. Temporary hierarchy, eternal equality, the whole cosmic plan. But now we kind of have to pull back, don't we, and admit the limits of our own viewpoint. The sources seem to insist that we, as creatures, just can't grasp the full picture.
That is the essential takeaway at the end, yes. A dose of humility. We, as creatures, well, we only exist within space-time. Our entire way of thinking, our logic, even our language, it's all shaped by time, by sequence, by dimension.
So we literally can't think outside the box we live in.
Pretty much.
Right.
Therefore, we cannot truly comprehend that always eternal realm or what God is fundamentally like when existing outside all those constraints we take for granted.
So this whole deep dive, analyzing this intricate structure, you're saying that structure itself is just a glimpse, a revelation tailored specifically for us.
That's exactly how the sources present it. We only know what God has chosen to reveal, and it's been revealed for the purpose of salvation. To go on doing. Just enough for us to understand redemption, relationship, our place in the plan.
Not the full, unvarnished reality of God's being.
Think about it. If God revealed his full, eternal, unconstrained nature, we probably wouldn't have the mental framework to even process it, let alone survive the knowledge. It would be overwhelming. We get the blueprints needed for salvation, but the uncreated reality, it's vast and mostly hidden from us. Trying to imagine the relationship between the Father and Son outside the roles they took on for our sake, it's just beyond a creature's capacity.
And to really drive that point home, the sources use that staggering comparison, right?
Yeah.
About how God views our entire universe.
Yes, it's meant to be humbling, deeply humbling. The source references Isaiah 40.15, pointing out that from God's eternal perspective, this vast cosmos, Sejin, is basically insignificant, like a single drop of water in a bucket, or like fine dust on scales.
All the galaxies, billions of years, just dust.
Imagine, God might even view space-time, which had a beginning and will have an end, as functionally non-existent compared to the sheer scale and reality of the always eternal.
Which makes the focus of this entire cosmic project, redeeming tiny creatures on a speck of dust, even more astounding, doesn't it?
It really does.
And despite our cosmic smallness, the Father mandated a very specific, absolute response from us towards the Son based on what he did.
Yes, because the Son, who is creator, voluntarily became a creature for us, performed that unique, necessary act for creation's completion. All creatures are therefore commanded to love and worship the Son with the exact same devotion owed to the Father.
It's not optional or secondary.
No, it's presented as an inseparable command. That core directive, love the Lord your God with all your heart. The source interprets that as inherently including the command to love the Son with your entire being. Oh, God,
It's the only rational response, really, to the ultimate act of love and justice demonstrated in the Son's mission. It proves that the whole structure, the Son's mission, actually worked in creating the perfect way back to relationship with God.
It connects the highest, most complex theological point, resolving that equality hierarchy paradox directly to the most fundamental part of our creaturely experience: love and devotion.
Yeah.
#outro.
So we started by asking simply, is the Father greater than the Son? And digging into these sources, we've uncovered this incredibly detailed map. It seems the answer is complex.
It is yes and no, depending on the context.
We found their essential equality is the baseline, but it's temporarily superseded by the Son's voluntary self-emptying, an act he undertook for very specific reasons: to complete creation, meet cosmic legal needs for inheritance, and ultimately redeem humanity.
That's the core finding, absolutely. The hierarchy isn't fundamental, it's functional, a necessary tool for a specific job. It validates the Father as the origin while letting the Son become the prototype creature, the one who, through sacrifice, secures the inheritance for everyone else adopted into the family.
And once that job, that temporal work, is finished,
A function dissolves, the scaffolding comes down, and that eternal equality is fully restored.
and as we wrap up, the sources leave us with one last kind of breathtaking thought, something that pushes beyond even this complex picture.
It does. It builds on this idea of functional roles versus essential nature, suggesting a reality far, far beyond what we can really conceive.
What is it?
Well, think about it. If we, stuck here in space and time, can only really know God as the fire, he reveals himself to us in three persons for the purpose of our salvation. What must the actual fundamental, unconstrained reality of the divine nature be like?
Beyond the Trinity as we perceive it.
Maybe beyond how we frame it through our limited lens. The sources hint that in the always eternal realm, where hierarchy serves no purpose anymore, maybe the first and second gods even submit to each other. Mutually.
What's this mission?
Mutual submission between equals. If the Son's submission in time was the greatest possible act of love he could show us, what could a relationship of perfect, mutual, eternal submission look like between two equal, infinite beings?
Wow. That really does take the idea of relationship beyond anything we can model with hierarchy or simple equality. It suggests a divine reality that just doesn't fit onto our coordinate system at all.
Exactly.
That's definitely something to cue on. Thank you for guiding us through this incredibly deep and detailed look at the source material today.
My pleasure. It's fascinating stuff.